Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Clarksville's Political Forum. I'm Van Stokes, your moderator for today's session, and on behalf of Leadership Clarksville and your Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce, we want to welcome you to today's forum. Today's forum is coming to you from the Customs House Museum and Cultural Center and is being produced by Rick Goodwin Productions. As always, this forum is intended for you, the voters, to have an informed choice when you go to the polls to vote for the candidate of your choice on August the 6th. Today, we will have the opportunity to talk with the candidates who will be on the ballot for highway supervisor here in Montgomery County. To my left, they are our candidates, Mr. Jeff Bryant, Mr. Staten Black, and Mr. Brian Knight. Now, in a moment, they each will have 2 minutes in which to present opening comments from their seats at the table. Following their opening remarks, we will then turn to our panelists for questions. Our panelists today, on my right, they are Mr. Lee Irwin, Mr. Jimmy Settle, and Mr. Jay Albertia. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each question. Questions will be asked and responses will be given in a rotating order. At the conclusion of the questioning, each candidate will then have 2 minutes in which to present a closing statement. Our closing statements will come in reverse order from our opening statements. Our timekeeper today is Ms. Sarah Golden. Highway supervisor is a big job. There's no two ways about that. It covers a lot of roads, grounds, bridges in this county. Let's go now to our candidates for opening comments. First, we will hear from Mr. Jeff Bryant.
First off, I want to thank the Chamber, the Leadership Clarksville, and the Custom House for hosting this forum. I am Jeff Bryant, running for Highway Supervisor. A little bit about me. I am a lifelong resident of Montgomery County. I graduated from Montgomery Central in 2000. After that, I went to the University of Tennessee at Martin to get a bachelor's in engineering. I began my engineering career at DBS Engineering in 2005. In 2007, I had an opportunity to transition over to the Clarksville Street Department. In 2011, I was able to obtain my professional engineering license. At the Street Department, I've had the opportunity to, grow my experiences in engineering that range from project management of roadway improvements, currently managing the Whitfield Road improvements and Tylertown Oakland Road improvements. Pavement management, overseeing the installation of ADA sidewalks. Currently working on a bridge replacement that will take place this summer on Dunbar Cave Road. If I'm lucky enough to become the next highway supervisor, I look towards implementing a technology-based pavement management system so we can be more efficient with taxpayer dollars. Overseeing ADA installation of sidewalks, improving our road network for efficiency and safety. Those are a few of the things that I want to do as highway supervisor. So I ask for your support and your vote in August 6th.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Mr. Staten Black.
I'd like to thank everybody that's putting this thing on today. I'm going to try to enjoy being here. I'm nervous. I'm not big on public speaking. I'm Staten Darnell Black. Most all my friends call me Darnell. I was born and raised here in Montgomery County. Lived here all my life. I've been with the Montgomery County Highway Department for close to 24 years now. There's not much that I haven't done over there. I've run equipment. I've built roads, paved roads. I was foreman over the paving crew for 9 years. Done a lot of state aid paving work. And if elected, I would like to implement a better pavement management system than what we have going on now. And there's a lot of things in-house that I see that needs to be changed, and I think I'm the person to make the changes. So I'm hoping for your vote to get me elected in there so I can make these changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear opening comments from Mr. Brian Knight.
My name is Brian Knight. I'm running for the highway supervisor's job. I really want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on for us to give us an opportunity, because we have not had an opportunity of late because of the COVID-19. I've been employed with the Montgomery County Highway Department, will be 26 years this summer. I've been foreman over the traffic control crew for the last 7 years. I see a lot of things at the Highway Department that we need to change, and I feel that with good guidance and leadership, the Highway Department can be one of the best county departments in Montgomery County. I'd just like to especially thank my wife for standing by me through these we've had some long days and nights out campaigning. My two brothers, Dickie and Chip, I really appreciate them standing by me, and I just really would appreciate everyone's vote and support on August 6th for Highway Supervisor. Thank you very much.
And thank you to each of our candidates for your opening remarks. I made the comment, this was a very big job, over 70 employees in the Highway Department. But let me tell you very briefly before we turn to the candidates just a little bit about this department. The responsibility of the Highway Department is to construct, maintain, and repair all of the county-owned roads and bridges. And that encompasses over 750 miles in our county road system. Responsibilities also include mowing all county rights-of-way, snow and debris removal, bridge and road construction, as well as maintaining Lock B North and Lock B South. Those are the boat ramps. The mission is to provide the citizens of our county, Montgomery County, with a safe, cost-effective transportation system that ensures the mobility of people and products and promotes economic prosperity while preserving the quality of our environment. Those are the responsibilities of the Highway Department. They are great and they are wide. Let's turn to our panelists now, if we can, for our first question. That will come from Mr. Lee Irwin. And Mr. Bryant, you have the first response.
Mr. Bryant, share with us, what kind of management, organizational experience do you have that you can bring to the job of highway supervisor?
Yes, sir. So, as an engineer, I get the opportunity to manage teams of designers, contractors. So, normally I get to be on the front end of doing a concept plan and estimating costs for a project. And then once we get to design, I'm overseeing how that money is being spent, the roads being constructed, and just making sure that we're staying on task and budget. So I'm managing teams of builders and designers.
Thank you very much. Mr. Black, you have the second response to Mr. Irwin's question.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, Mr. Black, what kind of management, organizational experience do you have that you can bring to the position of highway supervisor?
Well, while I've been employed at the Highway Department, like I said, I was a foreman over the paving crew for 9 years, and during that time, I'd done pretty much all of the paving, was in charge of all of the paving that the Highway Department done, and unless it was contracted out, which we don't do very often. And I was in charge of anywhere from 15 to 20 men on a daily basis, and kept track of where things was going, what things needed to be done, and everything. And when I left the paving crew, I've been in charge of the shop equipment repair since then, for almost 5 years. I think that's puts me in a good position to know what is actually going on and how money needs to be spent.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Knight, you have the third response to Mr. Irwin's question.
For the last 7 years, I've been over the traffic control department there at the Highway Department. It varies on my crew. Some days I won't have but 2. Some days I might have up to 14 or 15. We work on a budget of $538,000 is what we have to spend. That's to paint the lines on the roads, to do the signs, and to work on traffic signals. And we try to have to use that money to the best of our ability for the Highway Department, and that's pretty much, my management skills. Thank you.
And thank you. Mr. Jimmy Settle, you've got the next question, and Mr. Staten Black, you have the first response to this question.
Thank you, Mr. Black. We're expecting in Montgomery County about 90,000 new residents over the next 20 years, with many of them moving outside of the city limits where the county highway department has direct relevance, of course. What are some things the department needs to be doing now to prepare for that kind of growth?
The department needs to step up now and start planning with the planning commission and building and codes to find out where these areas are going to explode in growth, so they can get a plan in line and appropriate the money needed to facilitate the increase in population. You can't wait until it happens. Once the problem starts, it's hard to overcome the problem. You need to get ahead of the game and make plans for the future growth. And that would be working with the other county departments that has a hand in where the subdivisions are going to be built and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knight.
I would like to work with the county mayors and the county commission to see where the growth is going to come from, to try to ensure the funds for some road widening, because we are in need of some widening of a few roads right now. Dotsonville Road has got so much traffic. Oakland Road has got a lot of traffic, but we've got a lot of roads that need to be widened, and there's a lot that we could do now to start make it better for the residents. Thank you.
Mr. Bryant.
That's a great question. I've been saying since day one that I started my campaign that I've had the experience of working with mayors and the planning commission to help identify these areas of growth. Now that's been focused on the city, but once I transitioned to highway supervisor, that focus obviously transitions to the county, so we can meet with the planning commission, the school system, the mayor, so we can identify areas of need where the growth is going to be and start identifying those roads that we can either build new roads or do road widenings, because you get a bigger benefit with new roadways that open up new corridors for people to travel, and they cost less per mile to build new roads. So we got to start with meeting with the planning commission, the school system, and the mayors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. J. Albertia, you have the next question, and Mr. Knight, you have the first response to this question.
Mr. Knight, Mr. Settle just talked about the future growth of our county, but right now we have a lot of needs in our county and our county roads right now. What issues do you see that should be prioritized in our county road projects right now, and how do you think that you'd go about resolving those issues?
One of the biggest things we have right now is our bridges. I've got some pictures that the public probably wouldn't want to see, of a lot of the bridge structure underneath that's got holes rusted in it. We have got to get our bridges back into better shape. We have several roads that need redoing. One is River Road, but until they get 48 Highway opened up, it's kind of hard to do anything with it until then. But my biggest focus would be working on trying to get our bridges in Montgomery County back into better shape.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bryant.
Bridges are a huge issue out in the county, but also the road structure that we have in the county is minimal at best. It needs to be beefed up because our roads are falling apart and causing us to repave our roads more often. So we need to look at the pavement section. So as the 90,000 people that you mentioned that move into the county, when we're building new roads, we make sure we're building roads that can handle that traffic instead of falling apart within 5 to 10 years. They should be able to last a whole lot longer than that. Thank you.
Mr. Black.
The county outside of the city limits has done exactly the same thing that has happened in the city. The growth throughout the county has outgrown the infrastructure of the county roads, and there are a lot of roads that need to have some serious work done to them, and it's all about the money. Everything nowadays is about the money. If you don't have the money, you can't do it. So as a highway supervisor, whichever one of us three gets elected, we're going to have to figure out how to get more out of our tax dollars and stretch it further and make it go further to make the roads better in Montgomery County.
We've gone through our first round of questions for our candidates, Mr. Jeff Bryant, Mr. Staten Black, and Mr. Brian Knight, who will be on the ballot August the 6th for the highway supervisor here in Montgomery County. Montgomery County is a big department, as we've talked about. We've talked about the roads. We've talked about the bridges. There are over 741 miles of roads in Montgomery County. Hard to believe. 723 are hot mix, 16 miles are oiled and chipped, and a little over 1 mile perhaps are gravel. And there's over 1,700 acres of land, rights of way, that are mowed 5 times a year. That's just for openers. Let's go to our second round of questions from our panelists. Mr. Lee Irwin, you have the next question. And Mr. Jeff Bryant, you have the first response.
Mr. Bryant, all of you have mentioned changes in the highway department. Now, if you can narrow it down, what are a couple of the top changes that you see are needed in the Montgomery County Highway Department?
As far as policies?
Yes.
Like I mentioned, a pavement management system. Being a pavement management system can range from a better road structure, preventative maintenance for our roads, and how we determine which roads get repaved, and using technology to determine those procedures that we use is what I want to do, because we can be more efficient with the same amount of money, and more effective. We can make roads last longer with a preventative maintenance program. So that's one of the biggest things that I would like to do as the highway supervisor from day one, and start implementing those.
Mr. Black.
I think everything needs to take place with better planning. The key to success is successful planning. You can't wait till the last minute and there's an emergency has come up, because that changes everything that everybody has to do. The highway department, like we said, does encompass a lot of area, but we only have 72 employees. That's when we have a full staff. It's been quite a while since we've had a full staff. And my hands are tied on that because that's above me. But I think better planning is the way to improve things throughout the department and to save taxpayers money.
Thank you very much. Mr. Knight.
One of the first things I would like to do is just have a better working atmosphere for the employees there at the highway department. I would like to improve our paving. Right now, Mike Frost, the supervisor, I admire his paving program. He rates every road. He paves them depending on the rating of the road. And I would like to try to keep it up. And I mean, you can do a lot of things differently, but we've got in Montgomery County some of the best roads in the state of Tennessee. Now, I can't say that much for the city and the state here in Clarksville, but I can for the highway department. I think he has done a very good job, and I would like, if elected highway supervisor, to keep up the work that Mike has done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jimmy Settle, you have the next question, and Mr. Staten Black, you have the first response.
Mr. Black, our Montgomery County road networks are interconnected at all levels of government. What could the Highway Department supervisor do to help perhaps move along some of the state TDOT road projects that are on the table, and we've got a lot of those?
Well, it would depend on where in the county it's at. The highway system does quite a bit of state aid work. We have roads that are deemed by the state as useful thoroughfares if something happens on a state highway where traffic can be diverted. We would have to work with TDOT to know where they are planning to do road work at, so we would know what we can do in that area, you know, to improve things in that way.
Mr. Knight?
One thing we could do is some of the roads that would be impacted by TDOT project is to work with them, maybe on widening some of the intersections or coming out onto their projects that they're doing. But right now, we don't have a real close relationship with TDOT, and that's something that I would work with, if elected, to try to ensure that we had. Thank you.
And Mr. Bryant?
As a civil engineer with the street department, I have those relationships with TDOT, and one of the things that we can do is sometimes manage a state project locally through the local programs process with TDOT. And as a civil engineer, I meet those requirements to be able to oversee those projects. You got to have a licensed engineer on staff at your department to be able to manage those projects. So I think if we can identify some of those projects that we can manage locally, that'll help get some of those projects completed. And then just one thing is getting with Mayor Durrett, or whoever's the mayor in the future, and seeing if there's any way we can take county money. If there's a road that really needs to be improved, maybe the mayor and the commissioners would approve of sending an amount of money to TDOT to try to move it up on the radar.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's go next to Mr. Jay Albertia for our next question, and it will be addressed first by Mr. Brian Knight.
Mr. Knight, it's a two-parter. Right now, let's talk about funding. Do you think the department is adequately funded right now? And with what we've just gone through with COVID, if the commission ends up freezing the budget or reducing the budget, how would that affect the department?
Right now, I wouldn't say we were adequately funded, because we have got so many bridge projects and paving projects, and there is a lot of guardrails that need to be brought up to state and federal regulations. But if it is frozen, you just have to try to do the very best with what we've got, and try to concentrate on the main projects and get those done on a lot of the main roads. But that's kind of the way I would do it. Like I said, it's just, you have to make do with what you have. Thank you.
Mr. Bryant?
I don't think the budget is adequately funded. I think it needs to increase a little bit. As a highway supervisor, I would be someone that would be trying to identify those areas of needs for improvements. And so when you're talking about improvements, it takes a little bit more money to do improvements instead of just being maintenance focused. Maintenance focus is repaving roads and repairing bridges, but actual improvements that can increase our safety and efficiency of our roads. So that's going to take a little bit additional of a budget to be able to identify those areas and actually get them built. Thank you.
And Mr. Black?
I wouldn't say that the highway department is adequately funded. I think we do real well with what money we do get. And the reason I say I think that like I said, I'm not saying we have plenty of money, but we do find, the reason I say that is right now there is almost $7 million in fund balance where it's been left over from previous years that hasn't been spent. That's out of my hands right now. If I'm elected, I can do something about that. I can put that money to use instead of just setting it back and it just sitting there. Because I know you need to try to hold a fund balance so when you do have something major happen, you do have money to fall back on. But I think $7 million is a little high in a fund balance.
Thank you very much. If you've just joined us, you're watching Clarksville's Political Forum. We are meeting with Mr. Jeff Bryant, Mr. Staten Black, and Mr. Brian Knight. These gentlemen will be on the ballot on August the 6th in the state primary and county general elections. At that time, elections will be held on the state primary ballot for the United States Senate, the United States House of Representatives, Tennessee State Senate, and the Tennessee House of Representatives for District 67, 68, and 74. And on the general ballot for Montgomery County at that time will be the candidates for Circuit Court Judge, Part 5, the Assessor of Property, Highway Supervisor that we're talking about right now, as well as School Board Districts 2, 4, and 6, and School Board District 3 to fill an unexpired term. Again, August the 6th, coming up on the state primary and county general elections. Let's go back to our panelists if we can for our next round of questions, our final round of questions. First will come from Mr. Lee Irwin, and that will go to Mr. Jeff Bryant.
Mr. Bryant, there's been a lot of talk about funding and budgets, and county commissioners, county lawmakers How do you propose maintaining a strong working relationship with the county commissioners as well as the county mayor to ensure that budget needs are being met?
When you identify areas of needs, you got to be able to back those projects up technically. And as an engineer, I can provide that technical background and evidence as to why we need to increase the budget for certain projects. So I just think that my background would allow myself to communicate those needs a little better than possibly others. Thank you.
Mr. Black?
Well, I think you need to establish a good working relationship with all of the county lawmakers, whether it be the mayor, county commissioner, regardless of what district they're in, and even the city councilman and stuff. That way you can be ahead of the game. You can talk to people when you're out. You know them, you see them, and they'll give you some insight on what things are taking place maybe at the edge of the city limits that you don't know is going on. You just need to have establish a good working relationship with them, and and I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Knight?
I would like the highway supervisor should attend all the county commission meetings, at least talk with the county commissioners and the county mayor, at least, once a month, and kind of let them know what is going on with the highway department. And like I said, I admire Jeff for going to school and being an engineer, but the highway department has been run since the early 70s without an engineer. And I really feel that we've got the best roads in the state of Tennessee. If you drive on any county road surrounding this county, I think you'll see that. Thank you.
And thank you, gentlemen. Let's go next to Mr. Jimmy Settle. Your question will go to Mr. Staten Black for the first answer.
Mr. Black, what do you see as a key demand or qualification, perhaps, for the highway supervisor's position in Montgomery County that maybe didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, that's a tough question. I don't know that there's anything that exists today that didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago. It just may have been overlooked back then. I think the key to things is planning and communication. You need to know what's going on, and you need to have a plan in place to take care of what needs to be done. You've got to keep your employees happy. If your employees are happy, they don't mind coming to work. They enjoy getting up, coming to work. If they're not happy, they don't want to come to work, and when they do get there, they don't want to do anything, and they're mad about it, and they're tearing stuff up constantly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
I mean, it is a lot of things that have changed in the last 15 or 20 years, especially traffic on the roads. But as far as the experience, I really, other than traffic being on the roads and more people moving to Montgomery County, that's basically the only thing that I can see. Thank you.
Mr. Bryan has the next response. If you could ask that question again, please.
Sure. Basically, the question is, what do you see as a key demand or qualification for Montgomery County Highway Supervisor for that position that maybe didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago that exists now?
Well, I think that kind of touches on what Mr. Knight said about me going to school and that the department's never been run by an engineer before. I think you can go out to some of these new subdivisions and see how the roads are tearing up within a few years of being constructed, and that's because of the road section is not adequately thick enough, and that's causing the taxpayers to go and fix roads that shouldn't be needing those fixes in such a short time period. As an engineer, I understand how to identify where those areas need to be improved. I hear on the campaign trail that the shoulder drop off is sometimes in excess of 5 inches. And when you have over 5 inches of a vertical drop off, there's studies that shown that is an unsafe road shoulder. Even if it's 2 inches, it's unsafe. And so there's engineering practices that we can utilize to improve our road network. And as an engineer, I know those
Thank you.
those ideas that we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that response. We'll go to our panelists for our final question. That will come from Mr. Jay Albertia, and it will go to Mr. Brian Knight.
First of all, let me thank you for all your coming here and doing it, because always we hear the negative things about our roads and everything about the positives when it's done. We also have confusion in our community on what's a city road, what's a county road, what's a state road. And we talk about that relationship and cooperation that we're now benefiting from with our city and county. How can you foster that relationship with the city department of roads and building and maintenance, and how can that relationship being fostered together help us in our community?
I mean, as of today, like if the city street department needs anything, we try to help them, and vice versa, they try to help us. I know I work a lot with the traffic control department at the city. If there's anything we ever need, they're always more than helpful, and we're the same way with them. And I just feel that we should continue that, just a good working relationship with the city of Clarksville, with their street department. I mean, anytime we could help them, I would be there to help them, and I think they would be for us. Thank you.
Mr. Bryant?
I already have a lot of those relationships as a city engineer. I have relationships with city councilmen, the mayor, the planning commission. Every month when we have our street committee, I'm involved with meeting with the council members and the other members of that committee. Every month I'm meeting with the mayor to give him updates on our projects. Since last August, I was involved every 2 weeks with the mayor and council members and other departments with the city to identify what he was calling the Traffic 2020 plan, so we could identify road improvements, new roads, sidewalk and infrastructure. So I have that experience in meeting with elected officials and communicating my ideas and trying to get them to buy into it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Black?
The difference between the city, state, and county roads, if you just look at the black stuff that you're driving on, you don't see a great lot of difference in them. I think the city street uses, y'all use green for your street markers, is that right? Green and white? Yeah. The county uses blue and white, and the states are all numbered highways. But I feel that as the highway department, especially out in the county, if you've got a county road that comes into a state highway, say Highway 48, and there's trees that are actually on the state right-of-way that are blocking the view pulling out into the road, then I think it's the highway department's place to get a crew out there and trim them trees up, or the mowers need to mow a little better at the intersections. And the same way coming into the city, if county road's coming into a city street, it's the same taxpayers regardless whether you live in the county or if you live on a state road or a city road. It's still the county taxpayers. Because I know the county tax money is to be spent on county roads, but I don't see anything wrong with trimming a tree on a state highway if it's impeding traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our questions from our panelists. We will shift gears now and go to our closing comments that will be given in reverse order from the introductory remarks. We will hear first from Mr. Brian Knight.
Like I said, I'm Brian Knight. I've been employed there at the Highway Department almost 26 years. I have ran about any piece of equipment over there. I've been over the traffic control crew for the last 7 years. I hope that people will look at experience when they go vote on August the 6th. And for somebody that's been there at the Highway Department, I feel that I could just change hats. My crew is already in place. I'm well liked at the Highway Department. We've got a great crew of people there. I just feel with a little better management that we could strive forward into the future. And I sure would appreciate your vote on August 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear closing comments from Mr. Staten Black.
Yeah, I would like to thank everybody for inviting us out and putting this thing on today. Had some, I think, some real good questions was asked. I hope we give satisfactory answers to everybody. I just hope that my experience throughout the years with the Highway Department will help convince you to vote for me on August 6th. I really would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final closing comments will come from Mr. Jeff Bryant.
I appreciate all the questions that have been asked. They've been some great questions, and I hope they've helped define what relative experience this job really needs. There's been comments about there's never been an engineer at the department, and I think that shows at times, as I've seen where things have been implemented out in the county that do not meet good engineering practices. I've seen or I've heard people say that there needs to be changes made at the Highway Department, and those changes, really, I'm the only one that's sitting up here that have those experiences that can bring those changes to the department. So I appreciate the questions. I ask for your support and your vote on August 6th. Thank you.
And thank you all very, very much for your participation here today. I want to say thanks again for sharing your time and your thoughts with us today, and more than that, for being willing to serve as highway supervisor for Montgomery County. Your willingness to serve this community is noted and also greatly appreciated. I want to remind you that early voting will take place July the 17th through August the 1st. The location, once again, at the Election Commission office at 350 Pageant Lane, Suite 404. I want to say thank you also to our panelists today, Mr. Lee Irwin, Mr. Jimmy Settle, and Mr. Jay Alberta. Thank you very much for your questions. Timely, on the mark, as always, and greatly appreciated. And thanks also to Rick Goodwin Productions for handling the broadcast today, as well as the staff here at Customs House Museum and Cultural Center for serving as our host. And thank you also to Leadership Clarksville and your Clarksville Area Chamber of Commerce who made this forum possible. Remember, August the 6th, state primary and county general elections. Until next time, I'm Van Stokes saying, so long, everyone.
You're watching Clarksville Community Network.